day I discovered my wife, Lin Shui, was having an affair, I remained unusually calm. She came home, reeking of alcohol and another man's cologne, and collapsed onto the sofa. I even poured her a glass of hot milk and told her to get some rest. She thought she'd gotten away with it, but in reality, I'd been monitoring her phone for a long time. I even knew full well that she was carrying another man's child. What she didn't know was that I, the good-for-nothing son-in-law, in her eyes cooled with a single thought: destroy her and her lover beyond redemption. The light from the phone screen cast a faint glow on my face. The chat logs were unbearable to look at. Baby, your husband hasn't found out yet, has he? With how useless he is, he probably won't even notice. Don't worry, brother Hao, he's just a loser. All he does is work out and cook. Even if he had the guts, he wouldn't dare suspect me. Good to hear. By the way, how's our baby doing? Don't let him touch it. I find him disgusting. Stop teasing me. Brother Hao, how could I possibly let him touch me? The baby's doing great. The doctor said it's healthy. By the way, when can we finally be together openly? I can't stand that loser for even a single day longer. Soon, baby. Once I secure that Lin family project, I'll kick him to the curb. Then you'll be mine. Zhang Hao's legally wedded wife. I turned off the screen with a blank expression, and the room plunged into darkness. My heart didn't twist in pain as I'd expected. Only a cold, deathly silence remained. I've been married to Lin Shui for 3 years, as a son-in-law in the Lin family. Oh outsiders, I'm a good-for-nothing freeloader. For the past 3 years, I've handled all the housework and taken care of her down to the last detail. She has a sensitive stomach, so I learned to make dozens of different soups to soothe it. She loves working out, so I built 8-pack abs and a V-line, just so she'd glance at me one more time. I thought a person's heart could be warmed. Now it seems it was just a one-sided joke of mine. The sound of a key turning came from the entryway. I quickly suppressed all my emotions, stood up, and walked out of the bedroom. Lin Shui was back, her steps unsteady, reeking of alcohol, mixed with the scent of a strange men's cologne, pungent and nauseating. You're back. I stepped forward, reaching out to steady her. She swatted my hand away in disgust, her eyes brimming with contempt. Don't touch me, you loser. With that, she flopped onto the sofa and closed her eyes in exhaustion. I looked at her, the woman I'd loved for 3 years, and in that moment, she seemed like a filthy stranger. I didn't get angry, nor did I confront her. In the face of overwhelming power, anger is the most useless of emotions. I turned and walked into the kitchen, heated up a cup of milk, and brought it to her. Have some milk before you sleep, or you'll have a headache tomorrow. My voice was as still as a stagnant pool. Lin Shui opened her eyes and looked at me with some surprise. Perhaps in her eyes, I should have been flying into a rage, or humbly begging her to tell me where she'd been. But she saw none of that. She took the milk, a mocking smile curving her lips. I'll give you credit for knowing your place. After downing it in one gulp, she tossed the cup onto the coffee table, staggered into the bedroom, and slammed the door shut. I stood in the living room, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing from inside the bedroom, and slowly picked up the cup she had used. On the rim, there was a smudge of her lipstick and the scent of that man. I walked into the kitchen and slammed the cup into the trash can. The sharp crack of shattering glass rang particularly jarring. In the silent night, Lin Shui, Zhang Hao, the game is about to begin. I took out another phone and dialed a number. Hello, boss. A respectful yet efficient voice came from the other end. It was my right-hand man, Chen Mo. Look into someone. Zhang Hao, the vice president of TNU Group. Yes, boss. Chen Mo didn't ask for any reasons. That was part of his professional discipline. Also, I paused, my voice as cold as ice. Activate Heaven's punishment. The targets, Lin Group and TNU Group. I want them completely wiped out of this city. Within a month, Chen Mo's breathing caught on the other end of the line. He was clearly stunned by my order. Heaven's punishment was a business destruction plan I had devised myself. Once activated, it meant an all-out assault, with no regard for cost and no room for compromise. Deploying this plan against a mere 2-second-rate conglomerates was like using a nuclear bomb to swat a mosquito. Boss, has something happened? Chen Mo asked cautiously. Nothing. I walked to the window, gazing at the city lights below, a cold smile curving my lips. Just 2 flies got into the house. It's a bit annoying. Understood. Boss, I guarantee the mission will be completed. Hanging up the phone, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. An unremarkable face, yet eyes as deep as an abyss. 3 years ago, tired of the backstabbing in the business world, I chose to retire, drifting through life, in search of a shred of its true meaning. When I met Lin Shui, I thought I'd found it. I sheathed all my sharp edges, willingly rolling up my sleeves to cook for her, content to be an ordinary husband. Now, it seems I was wrong. Some people simply don't deserve genuine love. Since she craves power and money, I'll let her see with her own eyes exactly what she's missed out on in pursuit of those things. I'll also make her experience firsthand what it feels like to fall from the clouds into the mud. Chapter 2. The next morning, I prepared breakfast as usual. Millet congee, steamed buns, and her favorite soft-boiled eggs. Lin Shui had a hangover and a terrible headache. Her complexion was ghastly. Sitting at the table, she didn't even glance at me as she ate on her own. There's an important meeting at the company today. I need to head over, I said casually while wiping the table. Lin Shui's hand paused mid-bite. She looked up, her eyes brimming with scorn. You're going to the company? What for? A useless, deadbeat husband like you wants to meddle in company affairs. Mom told me to go. I brought my mother-in-law into it. Lin Shi's expression darkened even further. She hated it when her mom kept trying to get me into the company. She thought I was an embarrassment to her. I'm warning you, once you're at the company, just keep your head down and don't cause any trouble. And don't you dare tell anyone you're my husband, she commanded viciously. Okay, I nodded, as docile as a lamb. She snorted in satisfaction. After finishing breakfast, she grabbed her bag and clacked away in her high heels. Watching her retreating figure, the smile on my lips grew colder and colder. Today, the show begins. I slipped into a cheap suit one Lin Shui had bought for me during a sale last year, and looked every bit the real estate agent. I took a taxi to the entrance of the Lin Group building. The receptionist's eyes filled with contempt the moment she saw me. I'm here to see President Lin, I said. Do you have an appointment? The receptionist asked curtly. I'm her. I paused, remembering Lin Shui's warning, then corrected myself. I'm a family member. The receptionist eyed me up and down, then snorted. We know all of Ms. Lin's family. Never seen anyone like you before. Get out of here. Don't ruin the company's image. Just then, a familiar figure stepped out of the elevator. Zhang Hao. He was dressed in a bespoke suit, his hair slicked back to a glossy sheen, his face radiating smug satisfaction. He was accompanied by several TNU Group employees, while a few Lin Group executives stood nearby, bowing and scraping with forced smiles. Zhang Hao spotted me immediately. He paused for a moment, then a flicker of amusement and disdain crossed his eyes. He had clearly heard about me from Lin Shui. Oh, isn't this the Lin family's son-in-law? Zhang Hao deliberately drawled. His voice neither too loud nor too soft, just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Instantly, all eyes turned to me, filled with mockery and a sense of anticipation for the spectacle to come. Mr. Zhang, do you know him? One of the Lin Group executives asked obsequiously. I know him all too well, Zhang Hao said, as he walked up to me and slapped my shoulder, a heavy, insulting blow. This is Mr. Lin's right-hand man. I hear he's a master chef. Mr. Lin relies on him for his breakfast every single day. A burst of laughter erupted from the crowd. So he's just a kept man, is he? Dressed like a hick. What an embarrassment to Mr. Lin. How dare he show his face at the company? I remained calm, staring at Zhang Hao's smug, self-satisfied expression. What business is it of yours? If I'm here, I asked coolly. Zhang Hao hadn't expected me to talk back. His expression darkened. What's this? Getting sassy just because you're a kept man? Let me tell you, I'm here today to discuss a partnership with Lin Corporation. This project is worth over 100 million. It's a matter of life and death for Lin Group. You're a good for nothing. You'd better not be in our way. Otherwise, if you mess up Mr. Lin's big deal, do you think you can take the blame? He kept saying, our Mr. Lin, as if he were the head of the household. I smiled. 100 million yuan project. I shook my head. Somehow, I just don't think you'll be able to close this deal. Zhang Hao looked as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world. You don't know shit. Let me tell you, Tanyu is determined to win this project. The Lin family has no choice but to partner with us. Is that so? I raised my eyes and looked him straight in the eye. How about we make a bet? If your negotiations fall through today, you'll get down on your knees and kowtow to me. If they succeed, I'll disappear from the Lin family for good. Zhang Hao froze, then burst into wild laughter. Ha ha ha, you useless piece of trash. Have you lost your mind? Betting against me? Fine, I'll take that bet. Today, I'll show you what real power looks like. The executives behind him joined in the laughter, looking at me as if I were an idiot. Fine, I nodded, ignoring him, and walked straight toward the elevator. This time, no one dared to stop me. Zhang Hao watched my retreating figure with a vicious glare. You fool, you'll be crying soon enough. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the top floor. The elevator doors closed slowly, shutting out the mocking laughter from outside. I took out my phone and sent a text to Chen Mo. Make your move. Chapter 3. Lin Shui's office was on the top floor. When I pushed the door open, she was in the middle of an argument with her mother-in-law, Li Lan. Mom, how many times have I told you not to let that good-for-nothing come to the company? Don't you think I've brought enough shame on myself already? Lin Shui was so angry. Her face was flushed. Li Lan sat on the sofa, looking disappointed in her daughter. Xiao Shui, why can't you understand my good intentions? Your father passed away so early. It's so hard for mom to run such a big Manny all by herself. That Jiang Chen may not be very capable, but he's honest and good to you. What's wrong with letting him join the company to help lighten your load? Lighten my load? What can he do besides cooking? What else does he know how to do? Having him here will only cause trouble. You. Li Lan was so angry, she couldn't speak. Just then, they spotted me. Jiang Chen, you actually came. Lin Shui's anger instantly shifted to me. Who let you in? Get out. Xiao Shui, how dare you speak to him like that? Li Lan glared at her, then turned to me, her expression softening slightly. Jiang Chen, don't let her get to you. Come, have a seat. I nodded and sat down on the sofa. You're just in time. Lilan said. President Zhang from Tanyu Group is coming today to discuss a partnership. This project is very important to our company. You should go with Shui to listen in and learn. Lin Shui immediately objected. Mom, no way. I won't allow it. Let him go. Where would that leave me? Shut up. Lilan snapped. Jiang Chen is your husband. Sooner or later, this company will be yours. What's wrong with him, getting a head start on the business? Lin Shui's chest heaved with anger, but seeing Lilan's firm resolve, she dared not say another word, and could only glare at me fiercely. Soon, the secretary knocked and entered. Ms. Lin, Mr. Zhang and the others are in the conference room. Got it, Lin Shui replied impatiently. She stood up, smoothed out her clothes, and instantly switched into Ice Queen CEO mode. She walked up to me and warned, looking down on me. Once we're in the conference room, you keep your mouth shut, not a single word. If you dare embarrass me, just wait until I get home and deal with you. I didn't say anything, I just nodded. In the conference room, Zhang Hao had been waiting for quite some time. Seeing me enter behind Lin Shui, the smug look on his face grew even more pronounced. He raised an eyebrow at me and mouthed silently, "Loser." After exchanging a few polite remarks with Zhang Hao, Lin Shui began the formal negotiations. Zhang Hao had clearly come prepared. The partnership proposal he presented appeared highly advantageous to the Lin Group, up on the surface, but in reality, it was riddled with traps. As soon as Lin Shui signed on the dotted line, it wouldn't take 3 months for the Lin Group to be completely devoured by Tia NYU Group. Although Lin Shui had some business acumen, she was still young and inexperienced. She was quickly drawn in by Zhang Hao's rhetoric, a look of interest flashing across her face. Li Lan was also tempted after all. This project could resolve the company's immediate financial crisis. I sat in the corner, invisible, watching it all unfold with a cold eye. As I watched Zhang Hao speak eloquently, and Lin Shui fall step by step into the trap, I felt not a flicker of emotion. Just as Lin Shui was about to pick up the pen to sign the contract, the conference room door suddenly swung open. A woman dressed in a business suit, with a sharp professional demeanor, walked in, followed by 2 lawyers. "Excuse me for interrupting," the woman said in a cool, detached tone, her gaze sweeping across the room before settling on Zhang Hao. The moment Zhang Hao saw her, his expression changed instantly. Director Wang, what brings you here?" he stammered as he stood up, cold sweat beading on his forehead. This woman was Wang Rubing, investment director of Tianqi Capital, the largest investment firm in the Huaxia region. She was also one of Chen Mo's most capable lieutenants. Wang Rubing paid him no mind, instead walking straight up to Lin Shui and handing her a document. "Hello, President Lin. I'm Wang Rubing from Tianqi Capital. Our firm is very interested in the Lin Group. Here is our letter of intent. We plan to invest 500 million yuan into the Lin Group and provide comprehensive tech, nickel and channel support without interfering in any of the company's operational decisions." As her words fell, the entire conference room fell deathly silent. Everyone was stunned by this massive windfall that had dropped out of the blue. 500 million, and no interference whatsoever. This wasn't an investment, it was practically a gift. Lin Shui and Li Lan were both stunned. They couldn't believe their ears. Zhang Hao reacted the most strongly. The blood drained from his face instantly, and his body swayed unsteadily. He knew exactly what the appearance of Tianqi Capital meant. It meant that his so-called 100 million yuan project had instantly become a pile of worthless paper. It meant his plan to take over the Lin Group had completely fallen through. Lin Shui took the letter of intent with trembling hands and skimmed through it quickly. The more she read, the brighter her eyes shone. This contract was flawless. It was practically a lifeline tailor-made for the Lin Group. "Director Wang, are you serious?" Li Lan asked excitedly. Wang Rubing smiled faintly. "Of course. At Tianqi Capital we never joke about business. As long as President Lin signs, the 500 million will be in your account within half an hour." After speaking, she cast a meaningful glance at the contract in Zhang Hao's hand. "I imagine that with our investment, President Lin won't need to consider certain partnerships, riddled with traps. Will she?" Lin Shui snapped out of her daze. She glanced at Zhang Hao, whose face had turned ashen, then looked at the letter of intent in her hand. Without hesitation, she tore Zhang Hao's contract to shreds. "Mr. Zhang, I don't think there's anything left to discuss between us. Show him out." Zhang Hao staggered, nearly collapsing to the ground. He was finished. Not only had his plan to take over Lin Corporation failed, but he had also offended Tianqi Capital. Tianqi Capital was a force he absolutely couldn't afford to cross. He couldn't fathom why Tianqi Capital would suddenly take an interest in a small company like Lin's. He shuffled out, dazed and defeated. As he passed by me, I spoke calmly. "Mr. Zhang, do you remember our bet?" Zhang Hao spun around abruptly, fixing me with a glare filled with venom and disbelief. "It was you. You're the one behind this," he screamed. I smiled, neither confirming nor denying it. "It's time to settle the bet. You're dreaming." Zhang Hao growled through clenched teeth. "You want me to kneel before a good-for-nothing like you? Do you even deserve it?" "Whether I deserve it or not isn't up to you." I stood up, walked over to him, and looked down at him from above. You don't have to kneel, but I guarantee that after tomorrow, you'll have no place left in Jiangcheng. If you don't believe me, go ahead and try. My voice was soft, yet it carried an air of unquestionable authority. Jiang Hao's body began to shake violently. He looked at me, this worthless son-in-law he had always looked down on, and the look in my eyes filled him with a fear that seemed to come from the depths of his soul. He didn't know where I got the confidence, but he had a strong gut feeling that I wasn't joking. Torn between his dignity and his future, he struggled desperately. In the end, the instinct for survival won out. With a thud, he dropped to his knees. I was wrong. He lowered his proud head and bowed it heavily toward me. The entire conference room fell deathly silent. Everyone stared in utter disbelief at this scene that defied all expectations. Lin Shui and Li Lan were particularly stunned beyond words. They looked at me, their eyes filled with strangeness and confusion. Was this still the same good-for-nothing Jiang Chen they knew? I didn't spare Jiang Hao another glance. Turning to Wang Rubing, I said, Director Wang, please discuss the rest with President Lin. I have some business to attend to, so I'll be leaving now. Wang Rubing nodded respectfully. Yes, sir. That single word, sir, sent another shockwave through the conference room. The investment director of Tianqi Capital was actually being this respectful toward me. Ignoring the astonished and skeptical glances, I walked straight out of the conference room. As I passed Jiang Hao, who was kneeling on the floor, I didn't even slow my pace. I knew this was just the beginning. What followed would be a series of dramatic scenes, one after another. Chapter 4. I didn't go home. Instead, I headed to an upscale private club in the city center. It was one of my personal properties. Chen Mo was already waiting for me, in a private room on the top floor. Boss. He stood up and respectfully handed me a cup of hot tea. You handled things well. I took the cup and sipped it. It's all thanks to your excellent planning, Boss, Chen Mo said. As for Tenyu Group, we've already started taking action. Several of their core projects have run into trouble and their cash flow has dried up. Within 3 days, a massive financial crisis will erupt. What about the Line Group? As you instructed, the 500 million has already been transferred. Additionally, I've deployed our best team to the Lin Group to assist them with their industrial upgrade. Barring any surprises, the Lin Group's market value will at least triple within a month. I nodded. This was my plan. First, elevate them, then destroy them. I intend to elevate Lin Shui to unprecedented heights, letting her taste the sweetness of power and wealth. Then, I will personally destroy everything she possesses. Only then will she truly understand what despair feels like. Boss. Chen Mo hesitated for a moment before asking, are you really going to do this? After all, Miss Lin is your wife. I set down my teacup and gazed out the window, my eyes deep and unreadable. From the moment she betrayed me, she ceased to be. I understand. Chen Mo asked no further questions. By the way, how's the investigation into the child coming along? I asked. Chen Mo handed me a manila folder. We've confirmed it. Miss Lin is indeed 7 weeks pregnant. We ran a DNA test. The child is Jiang Hao's. It was the answer I expected, but my heart still took a stab. 7 weeks. At that time, I was out of town, searching for a rare herb to treat her menstrual cramps. I spent half a month in the deep mountains, sleeping under the open sky, and eating whatever I could find, nearly losing my life. And she was in the arms of another man while I was gone. How ironic. I see. I tossed the file aside, not wanting to look at it anymore. Boss, there's one more thing, Chen Mo said. I found out that Jiang Hao planted a mole within Lin's corporation to take it over. It's their deputy general manager, Li Wei. He's also bribed Lin's raw materials supplier to tamper with the next shipment, planning to cause a major safety incident. Oh, a cold gleam flashed in my eyes. He's quite ruthless. Do you want me to take care of Li Wei? No need. I shook my head. Keep him around. He's still useful. A plan quickly took shape in my mind. Here's what you do. I leaned close to Chen Mo's ear and whispered a few instructions. After listening, Chen Mo's eyes lit up. Boss, that move of yours is absolutely brilliant. Go handle it. Yes, sir. After Chen Mo left, I sat alone in the private room for a long time. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Lin Shui. Where are you? Her tone was stiff, tinged with accusation. I didn't reply. A few minutes later, she sent another message. What exactly happened at the company today? What exactly is your relationship with Director Wang from Tianqi Capital? I looked at the message, a cold smile curling at the corners of my mouth. Now, you're asking, where were you all this time? I still didn't reply. My silence seemed to enrage her, and she called me directly. I stared at the words, wife flashing on the screen, finding them unbearably jarring. I hung up. She called again, and I hung up again. After this went on a few times, she finally gave up. Jiang Chen, you've gotten pretty bold, haven't you? Daring not to answer my calls, just you wait. The last message was full of threats. I turned off my phone, stood up, and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. Looking down at the bustling nightscape of the city below, my heart grew cold. Lin Shui, your good days are over. Chapter 5. It was late at night when I got home. The living room light was on. Lin Shui sat on the sofa, arms crossed, waiting for me with a grim expression. When she saw me return, she immediately stood up like a furious lioness. Jiang Chen, where the hell have you been? Why didn't you answer my calls or reply to my texts? I had some things to take care of, I replied indifferently. taking off my shoes and preparing to go to my room. Stop right there, she rushed over and blocked my path. Explain yourself. What exactly happened today? How do you know people from Tianqi capital? Why did Zhang Hao get down on one knee in front of you? A barrage of questions pelted me like cannonballs. I looked at her, that face that had once captivated me, now etched with impatience and suspicion. I told you, it was just a coincidence, I said calmly, meeting her gaze. I had a minor argument with Zhang Hao downstairs, and Director Wang happened to see it as she was passing by. She's probably the type with a strong sense of justice. This explanation was full of holes, but for Lin Shui right now, it was enough. She was desperate to find a plausible explanation to soothe her inner unease. A coincidence? Lin Shui asked, half convinced. Is that really all there is to it? What else could it be? I retorted. Do you really think a useless, parasitic son-in-law like me has the clout to pull in Tianqi capital? Those words struck a nerve with Lin Shui. Yes, Jing Chen was a good-for-nothing. That was the deeply ingrained belief she'd held for the past 3 years. How could a good-for-nothing possibly make any waves? It must be a coincidence. It simply had to be. She reassured herself this way, and her expression softened slightly. You're lucky, she snorted coldly, regaining her haughty demeanor. But I'm warning you, don't cause any trouble for me in the future. I don't want a repeat of today's incident. All right, I nodded. Seeing how obedient I was, the last shred of doubt in her mind vanished. She turned to go back to her room, but suddenly remembered something and turned back around. Oh, and starting today, you're moving to the guest room, she said in a commanding tone. I looked at her without saying a word. My gaze made her feel a bit uneasy. Her eyes flinched for a moment. Then she hardened her tone again. What? Do you have a problem with that? I'm the one who makes the rules in this house. No. I shook my head and turned toward the guest room. I knew she didn't want me to touch her, because inside her, she was carrying another man's bastard. That suited me just fine. I even found her repulsive, watching me walk into the guest room without hesitation. Lin Shui froze. She had expected me to beg her humbly, as I had in the past, or at least ask why, but I didn't. I was as calm as a stranger. This made her feel inexplicably irritated and dejected. You're crazy, she muttered under her breath, then retreated to her own room. Over the next few days, with the help of Tianqi capital, the Lin Group flourished and its stock price soared. Lin Shui became the hottest newcomer in Jiangcheng's business world, basking in the limelight. She was busy every day with social engagements and meetings, coming home later and later, the scent of her perfume growing stronger. Her relationship with Zhang Hao also shifted from the open to the clandestine. They thought they were covering their tracks perfectly. Little did they know that their every move was under my surveillance. Meanwhile, the situation at Zhang Hao's TNU Group was the exact opposite. Its cash flow had dried up, projects were stalled, negative news swirled around it, and its stock price plummeted, leaving the company on the brink of bankruptcy. Zhang Hao was at his wits' end, begging for help everywhere, only to hit a brick wall at every turn. He finally realized that an invisible hand was pulling the strings behind the scenes. He thought of me, that good-for-nothing, useless son-in-law in his eyes. He began frantically investigating me, and I too was waiting for him to come to me. Chapter 6. That evening, Lin Shui came home completely drunk again. The difference was that this time, it was Zhang Hao who brought her back. I opened the door to find Zhang Hao standing there, supporting a completely drunk Lin Shui. Our eyes locked, and the air was thick with tension. Jiang Chen, Shui's had too much to drink. I'm bringing her home, Zhang Hao said, a hint of defiance in his voice. I stepped aside without a flicker of emotion, letting him guide Lin Shui inside. He laid her on the sofa, but showed no sign of leaving. He glanced around the room he'd visited countless times, his eyes brimming with possessiveness. Jiang Chen, let's talk. He sat down on the sofa, crossed his legs, and assumed the posture of a master. There's nothing to talk about between us. I stood across from him, staring at him coldly. No, there is. Zhang Hao smiled, a sinister smile. I've looked into you. Your name is Jiang Chen, an orphan who married into the Lin family 3 years ago. Your background is as clean as a blank sheet of paper, but I don't believe it. He fixed his gaze on me. An ordinary nobody couldn't possibly know anyone at Tianqi capital, let alone make me kneel with a single word. Who are you? Exactly. Who I am doesn't matter, I said. What matters is that you're about to lose everything. You've admitted it. The Tenyu Group incident. It really was your doing. Zhang Hao jumped to his feet in a frenzy. Why would you do this? We've never had any quarrel. No quarrel. I laughed, a laugh as cold as ice. You slept with my wife and got her pregnant with your child. Is that what you call no quarrel? Zhang Hao's expression changed instantly. You, how do you know? He stared at me in terror, as if he'd seen a ghost. If you don't want others to know, don't do it yourself. I advanced toward him step by step. Zhang Hao, you should never ever have laid a finger on my woman. Even though Lin Shui had betrayed me to the outside world, she was still my wife. Touching her was a slap in my face. Zhang Hao was so intimidated by my presence that he backed away repeatedly. You, what do you want? Let me tell you, Xiao Shui loves me. The child she's carrying is mine. You're a good for nothing. You're not good enough for her, he shouted, his words full of bluster but his heart full of fear. Is that so? I stopped in my tracks, a cruel smile curving my lips. Since you love her so much, I'll give you a chance. I pulled out my phone phone, opened a video, and tossed it in front of him. In the video was Lin Shui. She was in a hotel room with a middle-aged man, half-dressed and acting intimately. That man was Mr. Wang, the largest raw materials supplier to the Lin Group. Zhang Hao's eyes widened instantly, his face etched with disbelief. No, it can't be. This can't be. Xiao Shui would never betray me. Betray you? I looked at him as if he were an idiot. Do you really think she loves you? All she loves is your money and power. Now that TNU Group is going under, she's naturally looking for a new patron. No, I don't believe it. You faked this. Zhang Hao shook his head frantically. Faked? I smiled and clicked on another video. This time, it was Lin Shui and Deputy General Manager Li Wei. The two of them were in an office, and the scene was just as unsavory. Then came the third clip. The fourth. The male lead in every video was a prominent figure in Jiangcheng. Zhang Hao's expression shifted from shock to anger, then to despair, and finally turned ashen. He had always thought of himself as the hunter, with Lin Shui as his prey. In the end, he discovered he was nothing more than a fish in Lin Shui's pond, and the stupidest one at that. Now, do you still think she loves you? I put away my phone and asked calmly. Zhang Hao slumped to the ground, dazed and disoriented, muttering to himself, how could this happen? How could this happen? Now, I'll give you one more choice. My voice sounded like a demon from hell. Either take these videos and disappear from Jiangcheng forever, or I'll release them to the public and ruin both of your reputations. Zhang Hao jerked his head up, his eyes filled with terror. He knew I wasn't joking. If these videos got out, both he and Lin Shui would be finished. I'll take the first option, he managed to say with great difficulty. Very well, I nodded. Remember, I don't want to see you in Jiangcheng ever again. Zhang Hao struggled to his feet and fled the scene, staggering away like a stray dog. I watched his retreating figure, my gaze devoid of any warmth. Then I turned my head to look at Lin Shui, who lay unconscious on the sofa. Zhang Hao was just an appetizer. The real main course is you, my dear wife. Chapter 7. I dragged Lin Shui back to her room and tossed her onto the bed. Looking at her sleeping face, I felt not a shred of pity. The next day, Lin Shui woke up to find herself lying in bed, looking completely bewildered. She was somewhat surprised by my thoughtfulness from last night, but didn't give it much thought. Her mind was completely occupied with company business. She had no time to deal with a useless person like me. While eating breakfast, she received a phone call. It was from the company's vice president, Li Wei. President Lin, it's bad. Something terrible has happened. Li Wei's voice was filled with panic. What's wrong? Take your time. Lin Shi furrowed her brow. Our latest batch of raw materials put into production has been found to have serious quality issues. Officials from the Administration for Market Regulation and the Quality Supervision Bureau are here now. They've shut down our entire factory. What? Lin Shi's chopsticks clattered to the floor. Problems with raw materials. This was a catastrophe. If confirmed, Line Group would not only face massive fines, but its reputation would plummet, and the company might even go bankrupt. How could this happen? Wasn't that batch of raw materials supplied by General Manager Wang? There's never been a problem before. Lin Shui jumped to her feet in panic. I don't know either. General Manager Lin, please come to the company right away. It's complete chaos over there. All right, I'll be there immediately. Lin Shui hung up the phone, her face ashen. She hurriedly grabbed her bag and rushed out without even glancing at me. I leisurely finished the last bite of my breakfast and wiped my mouth. The fish has taken the bait. All of this, of course, was my doing. I had turned both General Manager Wang, the supplier bribed by Zhang Hao, and Li Wei, the mole within the company, against them. I had them put on this little show with the sole purpose of driving Lin Shui into a sea corner. I arrived at the bottom of the Lin Group building. The company entrance was swarming with reporters and consumers demanding compensation. The scene was utter chaos. I didn't go inside. Instead, I sat quietly in a cafe across the street, watching. Through the real-time surveillance feed sent by Chen Mo, I could clearly see everything happening inside the company. Lin Shui was at her wits' end, running around like a headless chicken, constantly making calls and holding meetings, but to no avail. She couldn't get through to Mr. Wang, and Li Wei was fanning the flames from the sidelines, shifting all the blame onto her. Shareholders on the board were also piling on, demanding an explanation. Caught between internal turmoil and external pressure, Lin Shui felt for the first time what it meant to be completely isolated and helpless. Just as she was on the verge of breaking down, Li Wei kindly offered her a suggestion. President Lin, the only way out now is to find a scapegoat to take the fall for this. Otherwise, the company is finished. A scapegoat? Lin Shui froze. Right. A flash of malice crossed Li Wei's eyes. Just say it was an oversight by the procurement department and shift all the blame onto them. Then we'll hold a press conference, issue a public apology, and compensate for the losses. That's the only way to minimize the fallout. Lin Shi hesitated. She knew this was deeply unethical, but at this point, she had no other choice. To save the company, to save everything she currently possessed, she had no choice but to sacrifice others. All right, let's do it. She clenched her teeth and made her decision. She didn't realize that this decision was pushing her, step by step, toward the abyss. I had recorded their entire conversation. In the KFT, I watched Lin Shui's face twisted by power and greed on the surveillance CE screen and shook my head head slightly. Human nature truly cannot withstand the test. Chapter 8. The Lin Group quickly held a press conference. Lin Shui stood on the stage, her face solemn, as she read from a prepared statement. She shifted all blame onto a manager in the procurement department, tearfully insisting that the company was also a victim, and promising to compensate all affected consumers. Her performance was convincing, winning her the sympathy of many. Just as she thought the crisis was about to pass, the large screen at the press conference suddenly lit up. A video began playing. It was a recording of her conversation with Li Wei in her office, the very day before, discussing how to find a scapegoat. Just say it was a mistake by the procurement department. Pin all the blame on them. All right, let's do it. The crystal clear dialogue echoed throughout the venue. The room instantly erupted into chaos. All the reporters went wild, their cameras flashing frantically. Lin Shui stood on the stage, staring at her own face on the screen and listening to her own voice, her mind going completely blank. Her entire body froze, the blood draining from her face at a visible pace. It's over. That was her only thought. Ms. Lin, is the content of this video true? Did Lin Group actually find a scapegoat to shift the blame? Please give us an explanation. The reporters, like sharks sensing blood, shoved their microphones right in her face. Terrified, Lin Shui stumbled backward, unable to utter a single word. Security guards rushed forward, shielding her as she fled the venue in disarray. The press conference had turned into a complete disaster. Lin Group's stock price plummeted to the daily limit. The internet was flooded with vitriol directed at the Lin Group and Lin Shui. Hiding in her office, Lin Shui trembled uncontrollably, on the verge of a nervous breakdown. She couldn't fathom how that conversation had been leaked. Just then, the office door swung open. I walked in. What are you doing here? Did you come to laugh at me? Get out. Get out of here. As soon as Lin Shui saw me, she lost control of her emotions and grabbed whatever was on the desk, hurling it at me. I dodged to the side and walked up to her. I did it, I said calmly. Lin Shui froze, staring at me in disbelief. You, what did you say? I said, I did all of this. I repeated it. My voice wasn't loud, but it struck her heart like a sledgehammer. From Tianqi Capital's investment to Zhang Hao's kneeling, to today's raw materials incident, and this video, I orchestrated it all. Lin Shui's eyes widened. Her mouth hung open, yet no sound came out. She looked at me as if I were a monster. Was the man standing before her still that worthless, henpecked son-in-law she used to beat and berate? No, he wasn't. His gaze was bottomless, like that of a god who controlled everything. Why? She asked, trembling. Why? I laughed, a laugh filled with bitter irony. Lin Shui, do you really not know why? I took out my phone and laid out before her, one by one, clip by clip, those unspeakable videos of her with Zhang Hao and the other men. When you were with them, did you ever think that you were still my wife? When you were carrying another man's child, did you ever think that I was still deep in the mountains searching for medicine? For you. When you called me a good for nothing, did you ever think about who gave you everything you have now? Every word I spoke was like a knife, plunging viciously into her heart. Lin Shui watched the videos and listened to my accusations, her face as pale as paper. She finally understood. Everything became clear. It turned out he knew everything. It turned out he had been watching her perform like a clown all along. It turned out that everything she took pride in was nothing but a joke in his eyes. No. She shook her head frantically, unable to accept this reality. Now, do you still think I'm not good enough for you? I gripped her chin, forcing her to look into my eyes. Her body trembled violently, her eyes filled with fear and remorse. I was wrong. Jiang Chen, I was truly wrong. She wept, tears streaming down her face like broken beads. Please, forgive me. Can we start over? Start over. I flung her hand away as if I'd touched something filthy. Lin Shui, don't you find that disgusting? Let me tell you, the game has only just begun. I'll make you watch with your own eyes as the Lin Group goes step by step toward ruin. I'll turn you from the high and mighty President Lin into a beggar with nothing to your name. I'll make sure that bastard in your womb never sees the light of day. My voice was icy, devoid of any emotion. Lin Shui collapsed onto the floor, utterly despairing. She knew I wasn't joking. The man she had been with for 3 years turned out to be a devil from hell, and she with her own hands had set him free. Chapter 9. The days that followed were a living hell for Lin Shui. The scandal surrounding the Lin Group continued to escalate. Banks demanded repayment, suppliers cut off shipments, and partners terminated their contracts one after another. The company became an empty shell with employees resigning every day. Her mother-in-law Li Lan couldn't bear the blow. She fell gravely ill and was hospitalized. Lin Shui begged for help everywhere and sold off her assets in an attempt to save the company, but it was all in vain. No one dared to help her, because everyone knew that behind her stood a force no one could afford to cross. Even her so-called friends and lovers from the past were now avoiding her like the plague. She finally tasted the bitterness of being abandoned by everyone. In just half a month, she went from a glamorous female CEO to a haggard, broken woman. She came to beg me many times. She knelt before me, slapped herself in the face and wept bitterly as she confessed her sins, but my heart had long since hardened to iron. I merely watched her coldly as she sank deeper and deeper into the quagmire of despair. Finally, on the day Lin Group declared bankruptcy, she had a miscarriage. She lost the baby. When I went to see her, she lay in her hospital bed, her face ashen, her eyes vacant, like a soulless puppet. She showed no reaction when she saw me. Perhaps she had already become numb. Jiang Chen, she suddenly spoke, her voice hoarse. Can I ask you one last question? Go ahead. Who are you exactly? I looked at her and remained silent for a moment. Who I am doesn't matter anymore. With that, I placed a document on her bedside table. This is the divorce agreement. I've already signed it. You still have an apartment in your name. It's not mortgaged, and it'll be enough to live on for the rest of your life. Consider it my final gesture of dignity toward you. I turned to leave. Jiang Chen, she suddenly called out to me. I stopped in my tracks, but didn't turn around. If I hadn't betrayed you, what would our lives be like now? Her voice carried a faint glimmer of hope. I didn't answer, because in this world, there are no ifs. I walked out of the hospital room. The sunlight outside was a bit blinding. I looked up at the sky and let out a long sigh. It was all over. My revenge had finally come to an end. My phone rang. It was Chen Mo calling. Boss, everything's been taken care of. Good. Boss, what are your plans now? I don't know. I watched the crowds on the street, feeling a bit lost. Maybe find a place to just lie low. After hanging up, I hailed a taxi and disappeared into the traffic. 1 year later, Jiangnan, a tranquil ancient water town. I'd opened a small private dining restaurant, spending my days experimenting with new dishes and brewing wine, living a leisurely and carefree life. One day, a special guest came into the restaurant, a girl in a white dress with a gentle, serene demeanor. Her name was Su Wan. She was an art student, visiting the ancient town to sketch. She seemed to really like my food, and came every day. Before long, we became acquainted. I learned that she came from a wealthy family, an only child who'd been spoiled by her parents, kind and innocent, like a blank canvas. She also found out I was a divorced man, and was filled with curiosity about my past. I just smiled, and never said much. That day, she came to the restaurant again. After finishing her meal, she didn't leave but sat across from me, propping her chin in her hand as she looked at me. Jiang Chen, are you still looking for a wife here? She asked, her big eyes sparkling with a smile. I was taken aback. I'm afraid I'm not good enough for you, I said, looking away awkwardly. I don't mind that you're divorced, so why are you looking down on me? She puffed out her cheeks. As I looked at her radiant smile, the heart that had been frozen by a failed marriage seemed to show a glimmer of thawing. Perhaps I should give myself a chance. And give her a chance too. I smiled, reached out, and ruffled her hair. Sure. Outside the window, the sunlight was just right, and a gentle breeze blew. A new story had only just begun.